start our regularly scheduled board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors with the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome our guests. We have a full house tonight. And Mike, do you want to see if there's any need for translation?
¿Habrá necesidad de traducción a español en esta noche para alguien?
Okay. Item A3, approval of the agenda. I'll accept the motion.
I move we approve the agenda.
Then a motion by Director Stevenson to approve as written.
I'll second that.
Second by Director Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We'll move on now to item B1, public comment. We do have two requests for public comment. So the first one, if you come up, it's Lauren or Loren? Lauren Maples. Okay, come on up, Lauren, to the mic here, if you would, please.
Do we need to set the timer?
So, yeah, whenever you're ready, you can just kind of let us know who you are and what brings you in, what you'd like to comment about.
Yes, sir. Ready? Yeah. All right. Good evening, board. My name is Lauren Maples.
And I am Noah Carpenter, and we are here before you today in regards to the position of Mr. Will Ludy.
We would like to start off tonight by saying we are aware and recognize the Othello School District runs off a policy governance system.
But it has come to our attention that the position of drumline director, which as of most recently has been occupied by Mr. Ludy, is in jeopardy of being taken away from him.
We, on behalf of the 350 staff and student body, stand in firm negation against this action.
Mr. Ludy has built this program up starting with only 6 students to now 24 students registered, as well as other students who volunteer during specialized events. We request that Mr. Ludy remains as the OHS drumline director to maximize our growth within the music program and continue the improvement of student learning.
Based on talks between other students, we know that without Mr. Ludy, we will lose students from the program, and we believe that our assessment scores from percussion ensemble, the WGI indoor drumline show, and the marching assessments will fall dramatically due to the loss of an experienced drumline director, thus destroying all of the work Mr. Ludy and the other students have put in over the past 3 years.
We believe that it is because of Mr. Ludy we as the OHS drumline have improved dramatically in skill, passion, work ethic, and capability. Since his arrival 3 years ago, the drumline has gained much more recognition. We have received multiple invitations to play at public events, such as the Sendero Life Church, to play on Easter Sunday, and we continue to show increasing assessment scores at percussion ensemble, with the WGI drumline show in Portland, Oregon, and marching assessment scores.
Whereas the previous director wouldn't even take them to competition. Along with Mr. Ludy being an outstanding director, he is also well known throughout our community as a friend and a loving father.
We feel that since Mr. Ludy has put in tireless amounts of work, time, and passion into the drumline program, that he should be the one to direct us and teach our class at OHS. We know that the selection of staff is based on which candidate is the most qualified. We believe that Mr. Ludy seems to be more than qualified.
Mr. Ludy is equipped with the knowledge of the curriculum, and he is aware of how his students operate in order to succeed in and outside of the classroom.
We feel that the shift of directors and teaching styles would violently disturb our learning and performance abilities. We can all agree that having a consistent classroom environment, welcoming and understanding community, and established instructor is necessary for our education to be proficient and for our assessment scores to continue rising.
We understand the priority of the school board is the students, so here we are. 2 students represent an entire program who have nothing against anyone who would take his spot. We only have a desire to succeed and a passion for what Mr. Ludy has originally implemented. But ultimately, we are 2 students who represent a family.
Thank you.
Thank you, and that was very well presented. We do have another request for public input, and that's Sean Bates. Sean, come on up.
For the record, my name is Sean Bates. I live at 1156 East Juniper Street here in Othello. I'm an Othello High School graduate of the class of 1990. I'm a lifelong resident of Othello. I'm going to be very short. Everything the kids said was spot on. I 100% agree with what they said. I absolutely invest my confidence in Will Ludy and his ability to carry this program forward to the glory of the community. He has my utter confidence. I don't want to be here, boys. I do not want to be here. But this man is a righteous dude. He's a good man. The decision to propose to change the directorship of this program was arbitrary and capricious. It's not well thought out. It's a bad idea. It's a very, very bad idea. That's all.
Thank you. So, I'm going to speak for myself. I don't know if this is the first I've learned of any of this. So, I don't know if the rest of the board was aware of it, but typically in a situation like this, I mean, I think the students were hit it spot on. This is policy governance district, and even any board would not get involved in the day-to-day operations like scheduling. What I did ask was to find out if Mr. Vergara, who is in charge of that, would feel comfortable responding to the statements that were made, and he would like to respond. And so we have an opportunity for this to be a forum then for a response, if the board's okay with that. Okay?
Just with the forbearance that Mr. Vergara doesn't have to do this, but he has chosen on his own
Exactly.
to respond.
This wouldn't be something, we typically do, and I didn't hear a complaint against anyone. I just hear that people support Mr. Ludy and his leadership of the program. So I'd like to give Mr. Vergara an opportunity to respond, and that can be for the record. Okay? Thank you.
Sean, he's going to need to sit there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Pardon me, I'm a little hoarse, but do my best to convey the message. The decision was not an easy one to reach by any means. It was reached after careful consideration and after careful consultation with other individuals. It was a decision that had to do with trying to build a self-sufficiency of all the schools, thinking about McFarland and thinking about OHS, Othello High School. Mr. Ludy had concerns in the last 2 years about the travel that it involved going from one school to the next. And that was also part of the decision-making process to look at how can we maximize student contact on the part of Mr. Ludy. And then, so those two basic factors kind of played the major roles in the final decision to keep all of our staff that we have at OHS, Mr. Hoffmeister and Ms. Johnson at OHS, and then have Mr. Ludy have his own building, his own program at MMS, which I've had follow-up meetings with him and with a concerned parent and with also a student today. And today I had another follow-up meeting with Mr. Ludy, and we're looking at ways that he can still be connected to the OHS drumline program. So we're looking at maybe after school, before school. We're looking at some combinations that we can come up with so that he can still have a say in the program, and so that he can still have a way to be in touch with the program that he built. And he rightfully says so, that he built it, and he feels like something was torn away from him. And we had that conversation today. It was a kind and courageous conversation, but I thought we reached some common agreements, and we left on the note that we are going to continue to explore different options as a way to have them continue to have a say in the direction of the Drumline program at OHS.
Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you.
My hope is that you're able to reach some kind of a decision that everyone's happy with, and that's hard to do sometimes, but I appreciate everyone who's here. I appreciate the passion, and you guys really presented well. I mean, I don't know that any student or group of students has come and presented better than that since I've been on the board, so well done, and thank you for conveying your concerns so well. And thank you all for being here and that support, and I can speak for myself. I look forward to finding out what the resolution is here, and hopefully you guys can continue to grow into Drumline, and we're pumped. We keep getting emails about how well you guys are doing and the program in general, so keep working hard. Thank you. Okay, so there are no other requests for public comment. We will move on to board member discussions. You're welcome to stay. If you'd like to leave, you may as well. It won't be disruptive. First item is the legislative report. Director Stevenson.
So something that the state legislature has decided to go forward with is that they are going to try and do away with, now I've forgotten the word. Daylight savings. Daylight savings, not assessment. Sorry, I know you were excited about that one. But that is something that the federal government has to approve, whether the state could actually do that. There are 2 other states that do not do daylight savings. They just have a normal schedule all year round. So, just something interesting. That was it.
Okay, thank you. The next item is an item that we talked about having on each agenda for the foreseeable future anyway, and that would be the facilities discussion. Not necessarily anything specific that each time we want to talk about something new on this, but there's an opportunity for the board to talk about where they're at with their feelings on priorities for facilities. Maybe it's conversations that have been had with community members that you have had an opportunity to have and that you'd like to share. So would anyone like to start with this discussion?
I've had a couple of discussions with people about the idea of, and we've talked about this before, spending potentially $11 million and having a building that would be for early childhood education, that would be preschool and kindergarten, or $13 million and having up to possibly 40 classrooms, or having 6 classrooms on 4 elementary campuses, and that would be $13 to $14 million for a total of 24 classrooms. Some people instantly said, that's a no-brainer. Go for the 13 million. Some people instantly said, nope,
Wait,
nope, no
go for the
preschool.
13 million, 24 classrooms.
No, some people instantly said, oh, well, $11 million gets us more space.
Oh.
I don't see, that's a no-brainer. That's almost always the comment that I get that is in favor of that. The other comment is, nope, not if it's preschool. I'd pay for the bigger number. So it's not that it's just divided 50-50. It's people either say, oh yeah, that's financially responsible, or I'm not going to go for preschool at all, no matter what you do, if it has preschool involved. So just very interesting that they're one or the other. There's not, like, for most people that I've talked to, there's no middle ground. It's clearly, if you lay it out, one or the other. Very few people have said, oh, I need to think about that.
Did you get a sense of the ones who did not want preschool, what their reasoning was?
Some were concerned about, they didn't feel like that was a something that the district should be funding. Another one was very specific about why do we keep spending funds on those that are behind? The wording wasn't, they're gonna always be behind, but that was, we're not spending money on students that are, basically it was my kids or my grandkids that aren't far behind. You're not spending money on them. You're always spending money on those that are far behind. So those were the specific comments that I got. Did you need me to give you an approximate number of how many people I talked to?
Sure. I didn't need that, but if you want to share.
That was a comment from our board evaluations
Oh,
from
sure.
staff and stuff. So I talked to my charity quilting group, and that's about 25. Most of them are retired teachers. And then probably another 5 to 10, just one-on-one in the community people.
So with that, what percentage would you say were for and what percentage against?
Only like one-on-one situations would they tell me for sure. There were very, like, most of them were, I could just see, like in a large group, most of them either were nodding their heads for one or for the other, or some were publicly saying, well, that's a no-brainer. The lower money thing, we're getting better stuff. So I didn't really say, okay, everyone raise your hand as to which one you would vote for. I just kind of got the feel of the room that it's black or white. There's not a lot of gray. So I don't know if I could say a number that way.
Any other comments from board members regarding facilities that are coming up?
I don't have any for this time, but for the next meeting, if we could have kind of an update on the portable situation, what we've got coming, and I know it was also discussed on possible portables for the high school, and where we're at on the progress, when we would need them.
All right, great. We'll get that. That'll be on the agenda for the next meeting. Hi, and thank you, Ken, for providing some links to the positive effects that pre-K has on education. Kind of some national news on that, so thanks for that, sharing that with us. So that's something that maybe those links could be shared on the district website. Mike, anything? Tyson? Okay. All right, well, if there's no more discussion on that, we will move on. The third item under the board members' discussion is student representative interviews. So as you know, we had 6 students attend the training last week. 1 applied but did not meet the minimum GPA requirement, so that's why we didn't have any interviews today. So I guess my question is, where does the board want to go from here? I'll ask you the second.
What if we try it again in the fall? And I know that would be a shortened term. It wouldn't be a full year, but it would be better than not having a representative, I think. And maybe in the fall, we'd get more interest, a different group.
What are your thoughts, Ken?
Yeah, possible, or try to go, I did talk to one young gentleman. Oh, here it comes. I did talk to one young gentleman over the weekend, and was letting him know that we didn't have any viable candidates. And he was also interested in putting in soon. I told him I didn't know what we were going to do for sure at the time. So I don't know if we want to retry it again and see what we get, or
I would say at any time, we could do a training. That's the one of the requirements is they attended a training, not recently attended a training, but just attended a training at some point. And that's really up to the board, if we want to do a training, and then that's the new requirement for people to then be able to apply from that.
Yep.
Um,
how how many applicants did we get from that, after that training, you said?
One.
One? And we
One of the
had-
6.
Did the policy governance scare them away after that?
I
Or
don't
was
know.
it the essay after, that they would have to write for the application?
The last,
it-
the last application had an essay as well.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Any idea
Barbie
from
board.
you?
We have a couple. One of our concerns was that the training was not what being a student rep is about. Kind of just this a little bit is, it was a lot of how the board works, and we understand that is very important, and students do need to know if they're going to be on the board, how the board works. But it was 2 hours of how the board works, and then 5 minutes of what the student rep would do.
I think that was a really big thing, especially from what I was hearing from some of the kids from my school. After I talked to them about it, they just said that it was very overwhelming, the information that was relayed, and that training was a board training, what a new board member goes through, not really what a student rep does. So maybe in future trainings, shorten that a bit, just briefly explain what the board does, and then mainly just talk about what student reps do. Because at the end of the day, what they were really there for was what student reps do, not what the board does. But at the same time, it is important for them to know what the board does, and it is important to explain that. But I think 2 hours was a little excessive, personally, and I've been through that training twice now. So I obviously knew what was in the training, but I think the biggest thing was that it was a little overwhelming for some students, and it was more about what the board does, not about what student reps does. So,
And if we could, if we did have the training on what the student reps do, and more of a, for lack of a better word, more of a realistic kind of training in what, okay, this is how a board meeting runs, this is what you will do, here's a student rep report, the things we are looking for, the things that have been found kind of thing, and then maybe later on in the term, or maybe as soon as they get a couple weeks into the term, go into detail on what the board does.
yeah.
Because personally, it just felt like they were signing up for a job that was super time consuming and they don't get paid for, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
Is it overwhelming to be a student rep?
It's not at all.
It's not as overwhelming as
I think the most overwhelming part
is Project Bridges.
Project Bridges because we didn't really have
We have-
much
we have-
guidance.
Yeah, we'll
But
get
that's
into
a
that later.
different, yeah.
That's a student rep report.
So,
Project Bridges is actually not in the required stuff.
right.
The
but-
new stuff that we wrote,
Mhm.
I'm not saying it has to go away, that's not what I'm saying.
Can it?
But,
Right,
Project
but
Bridges was
not a
something that was
requirement.
brought by student reps,
Mhm.
always been run by the student reps, never was a requirement by the board, so that was always something that the student reps wanted to do and carried on, so
right,
Awesome.
but I think
it's
what,
up to the student reps if it continues.
Mhm.
yeah, but what we're, explaining is Project Bridges is probably the most stressful part of this position, rather than getting up here and, just telling you guys what's going on in school. And
That
I don't think they would have been put off by the policy idea, because, once you guys explained it a little bit differently from my perspective, it was totally simple to do. So I don't think that would have scared them away. I think what really overwhelmed them was the 2-hour presentation and basically not really getting to understand what student reps do. Yes, we tell them, but if we would have been able to present to them kind of what student reps do in a different way, I think it would have gone a lot better and you would have gotten a few more applicants.
What if, just a little food for thought, but if there was a student rep training that we put on,
Yeah.
just thinking, I'm just throwing that out there, but if it was student rep training that you guys did help
Like you were
develop
there
and
to kind of
implement,
explain, yeah.
but if we were the ones to talk
so,
about it, if that is.
this board did not make that training.
Oh, they did.
It was made by someone else, correct? And
Oh, okay.
I called Rob that night and said, our training sucks.
We were
being
Maybe
polite
not
about
exactly
it.
those words. And even for when we do training for upcoming board members, that we needed to tweak it, and there was like half the sides we could take away. We don't need and then it moves like this, and then it bounces, and so, yes,
I
it
think
definitely does need to
minimalizing it,
be
yeah.
cut. I agree
I can only
with that.
imagine if adults find that overwhelming and like boring how teenagers who are, you know, 15, 16, 17.
I don't know if I didn't say boring.
Well, but I think that's where it kind of got a little misconstrued, you know? I think kids are definitely interested, but just the way that it was relayed, what could have been different. So I think if you do another training, definitely shorten it a bit and have it more about student reps and less about what the board does. Although what the board does is important, and them knowing what the board does is very important. And I do like the idea of having a student rep training. I really do, just a little differently.
Got a question for Ken. The young man you talked to,
Yes.
is he interested like for this upcoming term, or was he asking, or was it implied that he could still apply, or do you know?
You know, I told him I didn't know. I just told him that we didn't have any acceptable candidates that didn't make it. And I asked him if he would be interested in applying and still in the future, and he said, oh, yeah.
What grade is he
Will
gonna be in next year?
a sophomore next year.
Okay. Because many of those people that came were
Juniors.
current juniors, next year seniors. So that may have been a factor as well.
Mhm.
Senior year is intense.
Well, the one gal that I talked to, she's going to be a junior, so she would still have time to go through her senior year and everything, but she definitely said that it was overwhelming, and that's why she was choosing not to, because she is busy, but I think it's doable, because I'm busy, but I still make it work, you know? So it's not impossible, it just seemed more overwhelming than it actually is. I think that's really
It's
the biggest thing.
overwhelming. It's overwhelming from this side.
Yeah.
Whether it's throughout the summer, or we need to continue to put it out there that we're needing. So I gotta agree with Jen that whatever we have to, whether it's a shortened term for someone or whatever it is, but a shortened term versus nobody, I think would be still better.
I have a quick question. So if we are moving forward with the shortened term, if during the summer, if I was the only student rep, can I wait to do my policy or whatever thing until there's another person with me to kind of overlook it? Or is that,
Or your mentor could look at that.
never mind, we got it covered?
I have another question about that. I thought the GPA was just to be considered, not,
My opinion on that was we put that in there because your students first.
right.
Priority is to be students. And I think my opinion is if you can't carry that kind of GPA, then maybe it's too much to be a student rep and a student.
But you're not out of the question, right? There's still another term that can be, If
Right,
the-
oh, no, they
yeah.
can raise their GPA and then come back.
Mhm.
Yeah, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but in the meeting, it was,
I thought you were very clear about, this could be
Mhm.
something in the future. If you're not here now because you explained that part, I felt like really well. If you're not at this GPA now, you can get there and then apply.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were saying to the students.
right, but
Well, what is the wording?
Yeah, I was just bringing it up. The specific verbiage just says,
Yeah, because last.
requirements for consideration, a minimum 2.0 GPA with no failing grades in their most recent completed semester. And then it just said, so attendance was the one that would be considered. There wasn't a hard line on attendance, it just said attendance will be considered. But the GPA, I think, was clear, the 2.0 in the most recent semester.
okay.
Tyson, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I was just gonna agree with him. We need to do some kind of a hybrid training on that for the student reps. I think, just judging by the faces and the expressions, it was pretty washed over, yeah.
So in our policy, it states that they will attend a policy governance training. Should that be reworded?
Yeah. It should be a student rep training, not
I
a
s-
policy governance
I think
training.
it's still important to understand what we do and why we do it, even though we're trying to slightly revamp the role of a student rep and the ideas that we have about what student reps do. So I think that the policy, I would want to keep that wording the same, maybe change what the training is, but keep the wording, the way that we currently have it, the same, would be my opinion.
I would shoot for a 10, 15-minute discussion on policy governance because of the wording on how they will have to eventually help rewrite or create a new policy. They need to understand that. They need to understand how the board governs.
Right,
But
yeah.
I think that can be covered in a 10, 15-minute overview. Like you said, less slides, this is what it is, this is how it works. And then, I like the idea of the student reps giving the remainder of the training. If it's 2 board members given the policy governance portion, and then they take it over for the remainder of the half hour or whatever, I think that would be great.
I would have to agree on that, just to make it policy governance. We're still following policy by having a little bit of the policy governance training in that session, but also let the student reps take over part of that training. I mean, we tried it the one time and we seen, I think we had 7 candidates here, and then with only 1 to apply afterwards, so something went wrong there. So we gotta look at something else to try to get the candidates back in.
But that could have not just been the training.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm saying
agree.
training was a part of it, but it
Part of
could have not just been that.
Yeah, and they
So-
also could have realized that, oh, this isn't something that I want to take on right now. But I think most of it was the overwhelming fact of the training. Yeah.
For the, if, I don't know if this is too soon to bring up moving forward kind of thing, but if we were to do another training, should we advertise it, continue advertising it and continue pushing forward the remainder of this year, or wait till the beginning of next year?
I think through the summer is not a good choice and not a good timing for us to get people. There's always going to be, oh, these people are on vacation, it didn't work
Mhm.
for these guys. So I think we continue to put out that we're interested and that we
Yeah.
need someone, but don't make any decisions or do anything
Mhm.
until the beginning of the school year, is just my thought.
But will the applications be readily available if I want to start?
No, because they have to come to training even to get the application,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
was my thought.
I think that's good, because then you can really explain what they do, and so people know what they're getting into.
And they can ask questions about the application to the
Mhm.
board.
Did you come all of last summer?
No, I wasn't. No.
Me?
We put you in, when did,
I think like August. It was very, very late in the.
you were running for like junior class president or something, so it had to have been the end, this time of year.
Yeah, because she was there for
Yeah.
Project Bridges.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I started. I think my first board meeting was either Caden's second to last or Caden's last board meeting was my first, and I didn't know I was gonna set up the board.
Yeah.
I remember that part.
Mike, anything more? So I would say that the board has an opportunity, if they want to be really clear about how we want to do that, we could always reword the policy to say the same thing, but maybe more specific, that's an option. Or just have an understanding of how we want to move forward, but I'm not sure that I'm feeling there's a definite consensus on how to move forward on that, so I would suggest, if you feel strongly about it, to maybe reword that section of the policy so that we're really clear, and then see if the board likes the way it's worded and accepts that. But for now, what I'm hearing is hold off on another training for now. Is that,
I think with the timeline, it's probably not feasible. End of school, finals, everything else, it's probably.
okay?
This is your opportunity to rewrite policy.
You
I
got
was
this,
thinking.
Taylor.
I was just thinking about that. I was like, wait on the policy. I'm gonna look at it.
Okay. Anything else on that we want to talk about? on now to student representative reports.
Okay, I'll go first. I honestly don't have that much to report this year. Really, the only thing has been from what I've heard from the band program, that situation and the student rep situation. But other than that, graduation's this Friday. You guys probably all know that. You have reserved seatings. Senior finals are happening these last few end of the week, and then we have 2 more weeks for the rest of the high school. And the last MMS band concert was last Thursday. So that's really all I have. Students are really excited for the year to get over and are terrified of finals. That's really all I
Same.
got.
Even though I already took mine, but yeah. All I have is all senior presentations were completed. Thank you to all community stakeholders who helped judge them. It was very nerve-wracking. I'm so glad that they're over. We finished our 3rd PBL project, Go Fly Kite, in Ms. Camacho's class. They will be presenting these to MMS on Thursday, May 30th at 9:55 a.m. And they'll also be at Project Bridges. DOHS graduation dinner is tomorrow night, Wednesday, May 29th at 6 p.m. DOHS gym. All school board and district office leadership staff has been invited. So that's just kind of where we honor all of our graduating seniors with dinner. DOHS graduation is Tuesday, June 4th at 6 p.m. MMS Commons area. Everyone is invited. Gosh, that was a tongue twister. And that is my last report for my student rep.
Your last one, how'd it feel?
Felt good. I'm glad to get it over with. Ready to move on.
So we have something we'd like to give to you, and I'm sure a photo op.
Oh,
No more
Lord.
shorts. I wasn't thinking about this photo op.
I
So
don't
if the
know
board-
if she was either.
If the board could come up front here
I
and
was
the
ready.
student reps.
Dang it, Taylor. My defense, I just got out of work, so.
So thank you for all your time and service to the board. It's a beautiful flag and flowers, which I'd like to take all the credit for, but I can't because it was Lillian. There you go. Good job, thank you.
I heard it. That's all I needed to know.
Okay, we'll move on now to required approvals. Before a motion for that, I do want to give a little bit of historical context to the resolution that's in there that gives the superintendent and board president, another board member potentially, and the executive director of finances the ability to negotiate when it comes to real estate purchases. That's something we've always done in the past as well with our superintendent. That way, whenever there's like simple negotiation discussions, we don't have to all meet as an entire board. So in case you were wondering about that resolution, that's not the first time the district has done that. Or the board has done that, I should say.
Just good to have in there.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the required approvals.
And a motion by Director Stevenson to approve,
Second.
second by Director Garza. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Oh, wait. Nope, wrong number. No questions. Sometimes I just need to put flags on here for where my questions are.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Under superintendent informational items, item C2, there's just the April financial report.
I
Any
have a
questions?
question.
I got one after hers.
Okay. On I think it's page 6. There we go. It's under expenditures for sites, we're at 123%. And I know that that's only 46,000 when our budget, our annual budget's like 65 million, but that's a high percentage over, so I just wanted to get a little clarification there.
Yes, Jeanette and I spoke about that, so Jeanette's gonna speak about it. Sure.
So this is in capital projects fund, so it's different than the general fund. So I was looking and, obviously I wasn't around when that budget was developed, so I'm not sure where the 200,000 came from. But, I can tell you what's been spent out of that category this year. We, worked with the city on some reconstruction for 14th Avenue. And so that was about $216,000 total. And then, there was also some work on the tennis courts. That was about $30,000. I think that probably happened over last summer and was kind of wrapping up. So there was some crossing of fiscal years, so that might have been part of it.
Okay. All right, good to know that I know that the 216 was finally resolved from years ago, so, but good to know that that's where that hit and to kind of see those numbers. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, my question, and I'm
Could you
sorry to
talk into the mic, please? Thank you.
I'm sorry to spring this on to you tonight, because I just noticed it when I was going over this again, just a little after 6. So if you can't answer it tonight, if you could just get back with me later. But I was noticing on the general fund balance, this year it shows right now at 15.9 million. Last year at this same time, we had 12.2 million. Why such a spike? That's 3.8 million more than this same time last year. I'm not complaining because this shows as additional revenue, but where did it come from?
Yeah, I will have to look into that and get back to you. There's many different things that, factor into a fund balance. But just looking at the fund balance comparison, the 3-year comparison, that graph, it looks like historically, this year we started higher than we normally do. So I think that's just part of it, probably a compounding effect. But I can look and see if there was any abnormalities this year that would have jumped that up even higher.
Okay.
It could be timing of people paying their taxes too.
Well, I know it takes a spike this time of year anyway because people paying their taxes. But if you look at the past, like I say, the last 2 years, it shows that same spike. It's quite an increase, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Over a 1-year period, when you look at the previous year, too, it was very little.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take a look and see if I can find anything.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, it is a good problem. I'm not complaining. It just wondering
Yeah,
where it come from, if
definitely.
it's
I'm curious as well.
designated or.
Can we, once you get, can you not just answer that just to Ken? Could you put that like on the, I don't know if we want it to be on the Facebook page for the board or somewhere else so that it's public. That's a publicly answered question, I think it should be.
Would the board be comfortable
Yeah.
with that being answered in the next board meeting, and then after that being published?
It might take that long
as
to even
well?
come up with
Yeah,
the
that
answer,
would be
I would
fine.
assume
I
potentially.
like that plan. We'll stick with that plan.
Right, thanks.
Any other questions from the superintendent informational items? All right, we'll move on to item D1, board response to monitoring reports. So I believe we had, when I last looked, there was 4 responses to ENS 2 and ENS 3 monitoring reports. We'll start with ENS 2. The conclusion by the 4 that answered it were all the same, and that was that the district is making progress toward achieving the desired results called for, but a greater degree of progress is expected in the following areas. And I just want to commend the board on really, I think part of it is this year we had the superintendent tell us, these are the goals that I want to reach, and the board agreed to that, and so it was very simple to see, did we reach the goals or not? but the comments that the board made, I think they were so similar to each other and really well-written. So the hard part now is which ones do we want to keep, or parts of ones, because they're written well and hit a lot of different points. Would the board like me to read each comment separately like normal?
Yes, please.
All right. So.
If you
that's a
can
possibility.
remember.
Would everyone like to read their own?
I think I know which ones are mine, but I'm not sure anymore.
So let's
that
start
works.
with the first one. Who's that?
First one,
The long novel one.
that's actually mine.
Okay, you gonna read it? Into your mic, please.
Okay. While there has been great strides in the number of students introduced to PBL and STEAM, the four-year graduation rate has decreased from the previous year. Meeting these goals, meeting these goals that have been set would continue to be difficult to achieve as the goal percentages increase. According to OSPI report card for Othello School District, the number of high school students completing a dual credit course has decreased by 34% over the last 3 years. A greater effort is needed to help students achieve these extra credits for them to succeed in their post-secondary education. The number of students reporting 60 minutes or more of physical activity was well below the goal of 30%. More emphasis needs to be placed to increase these numbers. Kindergarten readiness was mentioned as one of the successes in ENS2 report. While there has been great strides to increase kindergarten readiness through the Othello preschool program, OSPI reports only 16.6% of students entering kindergarten in 18-19 school year were ready in all 6 areas of development and learning. More needs to be done to find alternative ways to ensure pre-kindergarten students are prepared for entering elementary school.
I thought that was awesome that you checked the OSPI reports. I do have concerns that it's a year behind our numbers, and I get that you understood that,
Yes.
but, and all 6 ways. So I wanted to know what all the 6 ways are. I mean, I'm not asking you that question, but,
OSPI.
right.
Great
So,
insight.
yeah.
So Jen, are you talking about evaluating the past?
Well,
Yeah.
he specifically refers to 16.6% of students entering kindergarten in 18-19, but we were not evaluating that year.
That was the
in-
beginning of this year.
That
School
entered,
kinder-
that are current
schools
kindergartners.
entered, Yes.
So I don't know if that's what the
So
report
they have
was
data
showing us.
for kindergartners entering this school year.
Yes.
Interesting. I didn't know that they got
That are
back
current
that soon.
kindergartners that were in preschool last year, so anyways.
Number 2. That's me. Good progress was made in the areas of project-based learning and STEAM activities district-wide. A greater degree of progress is expected in the following areas: 4-year and 5-year graduation rates and % of students reporting 60 minutes of daily physical activity. That was mine. Short and sweet. I think said the same thing, but not as eloquent and detailed as Ken's.
I think that number 3 is mine. There is great progress that has been made in many areas except graduation. There are ideas to help this become more successful in the future, but this portion of the policy has not yet been achieved. So, yes, short and sweet, but correct, not, I think Ken's was a lot more detailed.
Number
Okay,
four.
number 4.
Number 4 was mine. I'd like to congratulate the superintendent for his efforts. In an environment that lends itself to awareness, confusion, and perhaps surrender, he has managed to remain focused on the instructional vision and mission of the district. The following are a couple areas of improvement for the following year. Number 1, Graduation rates remain an area of improvement. I recognize OHS administration and staff are working arduously to improve in this measure. District needs to continue providing necessary tools, PD, staff support, mentorship when needed. Number two, an emphasis on the personal health component to get closer to the established goals.
Well said. So I'd like to, I'm going to give Dr. Hurst an opportunity to respond to the comments that we've made here. So, go ahead, Dr. Hurst.
First of all, we just want to share, we believe we're doing really good work, and we know that we're making progress in a number of areas, not just what's on the scorecard. But if I could just go back for a second to the comment you made, Ken, about the 16.6%, and just briefly speaking with Jennifer, I think one of the things we need to do moving forward is just looking at the timing of that WA Kids assessment. So you have to consider the summer slide that happens, and then once those kids get into the kindergarten, what's happening is those teachers are giving that assessment right away. So it's probably not the best time to give that assessment. So just talking to Jennifer, we probably just need to look at the timing of that assessment when it's given.
We can modify, you can modify that?
Absolutely.
Oh, the first few days in September? So the last few days of August, the first few days of school? Okay.
So again, not the best timing.
Yeah, because I know your scores that are coming at the end of the year, when your preschool kids are ready, those scores they're pretty high. We've seen those. And like you said, the summer slide,
Yeah.
they do lose some of that. But
Mhm.
that's why I said look at alternative ways that we could help increase that.
Absolutely.
Are there two different assessments? The one that you
They are,
report to us?
but I think what I'm being shared with is they're very similar, right?
Yeah.
So they match up.
Okay.
So we'll look at that moving forward. I don't think I have any other comments. I think the comments about Project STEAM and project-based learning are very accurate. I think the comments about the 60 minutes of daily activity, I think we've spoken, myself and Pete, and I've spoken to all the principals. It's easy at the middle school and the high school levels for that to happen. I think currently at the elementaries, they have 20 minutes of recess. And then how do we capture that when they're at home also? So something that we have to look at, whether we look at that goal, whether it's revised. But again, speaking with the principals, some of them believe that we can meet that 60 minutes. We just have to look strategically of how those students can do it at the elementary level.
Is there a feeling that that 60 minutes has to be met at school?
No, I think they believe it's certainly at school or at home. It's just how to measure that at home that we have to grapple with.
And I noticed
Okay.
itself said self-reporting, or how do you capture that? How do you collect that data from the students?
We can't put pedometers on all of them?
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Do we ask the
But
parents?
how's the questioning, or how do you gather your information from the students that are reporting that they do 60 minutes?
I think this is just based
Are you
on
hitting
the
every
students
student?
just sharing on the Healthy Youth Survey, correct? So we're basing it on their integrity. So they can actually look at what they're doing at home or what they're doing at school. But we know our reality is that we only have this much blocked out at school, for elementary, that is. Middle and high school is not a problem.
Any other comments?
I don't think I have any other comments.
Any other comments from the board?
In terms of, are we going to put one of these comments on a scorecard for us to use later on?
So we could choose a comment, or we could do a combination
Okay, so we are.
if you, yeah, it's up to the
Okay.
board, what we want to do on that.
I think basically we use all of Ken's, and then we take the first sentence of Mike's and change I to we, because big changes have been made, you know. I think that we would all pretty much feel like we're congratulating, and there is that environment that you said. But the second half of his was more the following things, which has already been established in Ken's.
Okay, so the opening sentence would be the opening sentence in Mike's, from Mike's, and the rest would be all of Ken's. Anytime it says I, needs to be changed to we to represent, that's the board sentiment. Does the rest of the board agree with that? Getting a lot of nods.
Sure.
Okay. Did we capture that, Delia? Okay. All right.
Can I provide some clarity around due credit?
Yes.
Pete, can you share around due credit?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some context for the board. I'm not sure if Director Johnson was a member of the board at the time, but when the board established the graduation criteria related to financial literacy, and that forced a change in graduation requirements specifically related to DigiTools. DigiTools was a computer-based program, computer-based experience that we gave all our freshmen. That was also articulated with Big Bend Community College. All those kids got dual credit. So when the board said take away that graduation requirement, that's the drop in the dual credit. There's actually been quite a bit of work, successful work around expanding AP opportunities and true rigorous dual credit experiences, but that one was driven by a board directive.
Okay. How do we correct that with OSP reporting? Or
It's not that it's inaccurate. That's an accurate
I know that,
reflection. I'm
it-
just sharing with the board that
yeah.
that's the new normal. That drop is because we got rid of that requirement and 300 freshmen weren't being put into DigiTools. So it is a loss in a college credit-bearing course, but it's a determination that the board made at that time.
Well, I would say, for clarity, the board did not say no more DigiTools. The board said financial literacy is going to be a requirement, and the decision by the district or the high school was to not require DigiTools. Isn't that accurate?
I think that's an accurate statement, but it does become, you can only fit so many credits into a kid's schedule, so when you force the hand around financial literacy, it made sense to remove the DigiTools requirement. But I did want to provide some context about that if it's going to be included.
Okay. We'll move on to E3, survey from the monitoring report. Again, all 4 board members who responded chose the same answer, and that was that the district is making progress toward achieving the desired results called for in the relevant ends policy, but a greater degree of progress is expected in the following specific areas. We'll do the same with the comments, and I think based on the timing, that first one might be yours too, Ken?
I think so. Okay. Closing the gap between what is current reality and the expected goal of percentages of attendance in all schools K-12 is critical. The number of bullying referrals have doubled in elementary level over the last year's numbers and this year's goals. I'm questioning the amount of referrals turned into the district compared to concerns spoken at site visits. The number of bullying referrals at the middle school are below the current goal set. However, there is still some concerns because only 7th and 8th grades now reside there. Did the goal set reflect change made by moving 6th grade into elementary? And then 17% of middle school students receiving suspensions or expulsions is still considerably high and needs to be addressed.
The information regarding chronic absenteeism was promising. I look forward to hearing more about that data in the future. There is a significant gap in the actual attendance rates and the rates that were presented and accepted as the goals for the district for the 2018-19 school year. Perhaps this expectation and goal needs to be revisited. While bullying referrals decreased for middle school and high school, elementary school increased. Although the fact that sixth grade was added to the elementary schools this year, although the fact that sixth grade added to the elementary schools this year may have been a factor, the data was not specific enough to determine that assumption. There was no change in the percentage of elementary and high school students without any suspensions or expulsions. While the elementary percentage is very close to the goal, there will need to be a significant improvement at the high school in order to reach the goal set for 2019-20.
The goals you have set to achieve were very aggressive and progress has been made, just not enough. Attendance is still a challenge, and so is behavior as shown by the number of referrals.
I congratulate Superintendent for his efforts with ENS 3. I acknowledge his efforts in adherence to the instructional vision and mission of district. I believe progress is being made, but the following areas need improvement. Sufficient participation, attendance, is required to enable effective learning. I appreciate the physical information shared with the deliberative report that pertains to the attendance goals and the utilized measures for percentages. Like all good plans, an adjustment or refinement in process to enhance outcome is okay. I realize that it is the first year of the implementation of specific data measuring. If a different method or source of data collection is more relevant, I'd be open to discuss. Number two, I appreciate the suspension and expulsion numbers, but a continued refinement to process may also be needed as per the physical information provided as to how referrals are placed in certain buildings, I believe will enhance results.
Okay. Dr. Hurst, an opportunity to respond.
Yes. Again, on this one, again, we've made a lot of progress. One of the things I wanted to point out is under the bullying, even though you can see at the elementary level that it has increased, and we can disaggregate that data. I think we do have that data, Ken, to share with you that Justin can easily just share with the entire board. But what I want to just make note of is the fact that last year there was 75 bullying referrals, and it has almost decreased in half this year. So I do understand what you're saying, but just to note, we went from 75 to 45 bullying referrals. So I just want to note that. So that is certainly considerable progress on our end, our thinking. I do get your point that at that one level, was it the sixth graders that caused it to increase or what? So we did see that increase in elementary schools. So I just wanted to point that overall, we did cut it considerably for the bullying referrals. I think another piece I certainly agree with that was said a few times is the revisitation of the goals. I think we've already started those conversations. I've had those with Pete. We're going to kind of have that go down to the principals and the leadership as well. One of the things certainly is attendance, and I think we can all agree that we set very aggressive goals for the scorecard. This is our first time around. We were able to see if we were able to meet those goals, if we were able to meet some of those goals and exceed them as well. But some of them we were not able to. But again, they were big, big goals. So we sit down, we revisit, we look at the data. That's what the whole process is about, is revisiting those goals. So I think you'll see in a couple of weeks after we meet with the leadership team, you'll see us come back to the board with a revised scorecard where we have some more realistic goals of those that were just way out of reach, and you'll have us, we'll bring it back to you for consideration for approval for the second go around. But I do agree, and thank you for the comments, that we are making progress. I think that's good to hear from the board for the system. But I think also we know that we need to revisit some of these goals to make them more realistic. So I don't say I would disagree.
One of the things that I would suggest, make sure is that when you set the goals, they were a 3-year goal. So to go back and change it, I would say that as one board member, I would want some definite strong rationale for any, if you're going to decrease the goals. And then it'll also have to be presented out another 3 years, I would say, so that we see a trend. And then it's obviously up to the board whether or not we accept those new goals.
Yeah, I think the one obvious one is the attendance one that we just did not make the mark at all. Maybe the 60 minutes, but not necessarily. I think we can figure that piece out. And we still have ENS 1 coming up. We're waiting for some of the data, so we have to see if we need to revisit some of those goals as well. But I hear what you're saying.
Okay. Any other comments from the board regarding ENS 3?
In terms of the notes, I like number 4 the best. I think that that hits on all of them. I just would, right above number 2, taking out if a different method or source of data collection is more relevant, I'd be open to discuss. Just because we don't, in a comment, that's fine, but in like the official thing that we want to put in, just to remove that line. Because I think that that covers in detail all of the other comments as well. The best.
What I mean by physical information, by the way, is Pete's illustration where I forget what formula he used that turned the red into the yellow, that made it way more relevant when he explains that 4 absences totally skews this whole percentage, and how many of the kids in December have 10, 12, 15, 20 absences. And, you know, there's a percentage of kids that, you know, throw that clear out of kilter for the entire district. But when I refer to the physical data, it was the presentation Pete did on the end.
So Jen's recommendation was to keep the comment number 4, but to remove just the part where it says if a different method or source of data collection is more relevant, I'd be open to discuss, to remove that. And also then again, change anything that is first person to.
I to we.
To we, no. How does the board feel about that? Mike's good with it, for the record.
I mean, instead of taking piecemeal from here, there, and everywhere, we all said the same thing.
Yeah.
Mine was much shorter, but.
What do you think, Tyson?
Yeah.
You good with it?
Sure.
Ken?
No,
Okay with that? Okay, Delia? All right. Okay. We'll move on to item E1, review or discussion of current board policies. For the 73rd week in a row.
I know. I
EL12
need
is
to
in
get to EL12. I
Is
haven't
it-
yet. I'm sorry.
Is it worded different, or is it still the same?
No, it's still the same.
Are we leaving it?
Every Monday I look at this and go,
Or we need a
oh
break?
yeah, that's right. I don't know.
How does the board feel about it? What do we want to do? You can, any board member who when you make the change, you can bring it back in, obviously. But do we want to just keep it riding here?
I couldn't remember what the hang-up was on the revision.
Let's see. The hang-up that I had was the way I worded 2, those changes in red were mine.
Right.
It's that the idea was I want a minimum use. I don't know how to gauge that, how to say to have that gauged. I don't, there are always going to be those classrooms that are, maybe I should say those teachers that are very lecture-based and then work on the worksheet. As a parent of a student, of a few students, as a mom that has children that has missing assignments, sometimes it would be convenient to be able to go in and click, when you're going through Skyward, seeing all of the missing assignments, to click a button, print that report, that missing assignment, and take it to my child and say, we're doing this tonight, and you're not gonna leave the table until this gets done. Instead of saying, go to your teacher tomorrow and ask for this assignment, and that child doesn't do that. I think that I'm not the only parent that would appreciate that. And I know that some teachers are awesome with technology and have that ability and do that already. Not all of them do.
Can you do that on Skyward right now?
Yes, there's a teacher that has that in there.
Apparently, 'cause apparently my
that
kids
I
didn't
know
have
of.
that teacher.
Yes, that
'Cause
I know
I
of.
love that option
So
too.
that option's there. If that's
So you'd
just
like to see everyone
one of the,
utilizing it that way?
that's one of the
Sure.
examples, you know. And not that that's like the only way, but some classrooms are still not using technology, period. When they don't have textbooks in most classrooms anymore. They need to be able to know how to access their textbook online. Some teachers, after repeated bullying by me, finally figured out how to give me the link so that I could give it to my child so that they could, bullying is probably not the right word, nagging, so that my child could access the textbook from home when they needed to work on assignments. That, those are just some of the examples from my family of how technology is not always being utilized when we pay to have one-to-one. Every child has a Chromebook. Not every teacher has the skills or the ability to be able to use all of that technology. And it's not by the fault of technology department, but granted, there's no way to be able to truly monitor all of that either. But some of those things would be extremely convenient.
So Jen's doing a good job explaining specifically what she's looking for.
I just don't know how to word that.
The difficult thing is how do you put it in the policy so that then we as a board can hold the superintendent accountable and make sure that's happening, also from a policy position. So that's where the struggle's been, right? So.
Right.
So
So if somebody wants to word that correctly,
I think
maybe
that's what it comes down to.
student.
Jen's looking for someone to word it for.
I don't know how to word it. I've already tried, and that's not what, anyways.
Keep it going. If you drop it, we'll forget about it completely and wonder about it next year when it comes up for review. So keep it going. Eventually, I think
Maybe Jen will
we'll
get
something
tired of
there.
us pestering her about it and she'll figure out some wording. Okay, it'll be there next time. The other item in there is GP 7.1. I think we left that in there for the board to review, decide if there was anything that might have been wrong or need to be added to that.
I'm sure we're going to modify this another 22 times before the end of the school year.
We'll add
So
things.
I
Hopefully we
say,
didn't get the ends policies wrong written in here this time. I think those are correct.
I say we approve as is. I move, we approve
There's been a-
GP 7.1.
Been a motion by Director Stevenson to approve GP 7.1 for the 2019-20 school year.
We have February 2020 TBD, Robin Tyson doing some links to the community.
I think that we left that in there because knowing that there was potentially changes with,
Yeah, so-
because 3 people are running.
And before we approve this, Tyson won't be one of the people.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
but
true.
instead of putting in,
It'll get changed
because
though.
there's
but
3 people running and none of you are unopposed. So all 3 of you could be new. I mean, all 3 of your positions could have a new individual there. We'll just need to know that we could change the names then.
Right. I would say, might be a good idea to just to say the December, maybe the second meeting in December or first meeting in January, this is automatically placed in policy review.
Yep. And maybe you'll need to highlight the names so we remember why. We'll go, why is that in there?
Good catch though, Mike. Okay, that was a comment though, no second yet, right?
I'll second that.
All right, the second by Director Garza. Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and EL 12 will remain. Okay. Item F1, executive session. The board will recess into executive session for the purpose of reviewing the performance of a public employee and to discuss potential real estate purchase or lease. I think we'll start with the discussion of potential real estate purchase or lease. Total time we're looking at is 40 minutes.
Can we have a 10-minute recess before we,
10 right now?
yes. I mean,
Does,
before we recess to the executive? Is that how you
is
say
the
it?
board okay with the 10-minute recess? We usually just a few, but we okay
I
with the
know.
10-minute recess before going into executive session?
There are people to talk. Okay, 7.5 is,
So, there will be no action taken after this executive session, by the way, and so we will reconvene in Dr. Hurst's office at 8:22 for the executive